Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
The Stock Movers Podcast, your roundup of companies making moves in the stock market, harnessing the power of Bloomberg data.
Let's take a look at some of the stocks on the move today in Europe. I'm Stephen Carroll and I'm joined by Bloomberg's EMEA earnings reporter Chloe Mele. Chloe, good morning to you.
Good
a busy
morning.
Earnings day. Let's start with Reckitt, the consumer goods company. How are the market digesting their results?
Yeah, so Reckitt did really well this morning. Its shares are up by quite a bit. It boosted its revenue growth forecast for all of its kind of major brands, and it also announced a £1 billion buyback. So investors are quite happy about both of those news. This kind of comes as the Reckitt is trying to kind of refocus on its core brands. So an example might be Gaviscon, for example, or Durex condoms. Those are the kind of core brands that Reckitt is really trying to focus on, and then is trying to move away from some of the non-core brands. So, for example, it agreed to share quite a large part of its essential home business just last week to private equity firm Advent International. The essential home business includes brands like Airwick, the air fresheners, and Ensilit Bang cleaners as well. So that will no longer be part of Reckitt going forward. It's also currently reviewing options for its Mead Johnson nutrition unit. That's a unit that has faced lawsuits in the US over infant formula. So it's really trying to kind of streamline the operations, and it seems like so far that is paying off, and this reflected in the shares this morning.
Yeah, indeed. It's my favourite game to play every time that we have Reckitt results is what brands can you name that Reckitt do? And I will bring another one that perhaps, Chloe, I can offer you afterwards, which might be a Strepsil, which you might need as well.
Yes, I think so.
Let's turn to some banking earnings next. Some strong outperformance, the likes of BNP Paribas, Deutsche Bank. We've also heard from Lloyds in the UK. What are investors telling us about those banks?
Yeah, pretty good across the European banking sector this morning. So Deutsche Bank and BNP Paribas both beat estimates, and that's on the back of, for both of those banks, of really strong fixed income trading in particular. So this kind of echoes what we've seen from Wall Street banks that reported earlier in the season. The market volatility in the second quarter drove this kind of really good performance in that fixed income segment. The flip side of that is that for BNP in particular, the equities trading was a little bit weaker. So fixed income trading revenue was up 27%, equities trading down 15% for BNP. So there's quite a big contrast there, and that's kind of worth keeping in mind when we get Barclays as well, for example, next week. Lloyds was up this morning, but then down a little bit now. Its profit beat estimates, and it also reaffirmed its guidance for the year. But we do have the UK Supreme Court ruling on the motor finance probe, on which customers should be compensated, and that's due later this month. So some of that uncertainty around what is going to happen there might be feeding into that little bit of weakness this morning for Lloyds.
And then turning to technology, STMicro, their shares plunging almost 10% at the moment.
Yes, quite a bad morning for STMicro, and I guess for the chip making sector in general, there's been quite a few bad news there. So for STMicro, it posted a surprise loss of $130 million compared to expectations of a $50 million profit. So obviously quite a big surprise there, and that is all due to restructuring expenses. Analysts noted as well that the gross margin was really below expectations, so that was not great either. But crucially, and what's worth keeping in mind for the sector in general is that it really flagged weakness in the automotive industry, which is kind of its key end markets, and that's really weighing on the chip makers, including STMicro, that are exposed to that sector. Tesla, for example, is a really key customer for STMicro, and it just warned of a rough few quarters ahead. So the outlook is darkening a little bit by this weakness, and we'll have to see what the other chip makers are saying about this, but so far not so good.
The Stock Movers Podcast from Bloomberg Radio. Check back with us throughout the day for the latest roundup of companies making news on Wall Street. And for the latest market-moving headlines, listen to Bloomberg Radio live. Catch us on YouTube, Bloomberg.com, and on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app.